we did the scene, the seaman scene, with the little captain, and then the little boat and the oars and the seagull and things like that. And the next scene that we're going to do, because I love to do scenes, I love to do, just to have, you know, something standing there. It's not really my idea of a always the best thing, although you can do that. It's not wrong or whatever. But okay, that's about 3 1/4. I cut it a little bit high, but that's okay. It's about 3 1/4. All right. So the next scene is the scene that I just absolutely, I've done it before, but I love it. I don't think I've done a video on it. Is the scene that involves, and we're going to do quite a few little scenes, but this is the scene that involves the guy that runs out of gasoline. Now, most of you young people today, in today's world, I remember as I travel, every little town you go through, they build gas stations everywhere. I mean, they just build them everywhere, and I mean, every little town you come to, there's a gas station. Well, when I was a young man, and you used to take trips, you had to really plan there well, because not every town had a gas station. Most of them did. But not every town did have a gas station, and did have a nice gas station. You could pull up and get gas and do all that kind of stuff. Some of them were these old, you had to be really careful. Some of them were these old stations where these guys had, and Lord, they had water in their tanks. You had to be real careful about all that stuff. So I'm going to do this scene, and this is a little 3 1/4 inch figure. That's another small figure, and he is about 1 1/2 inches. I glued a couple of 3/4 inch pieces of basswood together, and he's about 1 1/2 inches. Yeah, he's 1 1/2 inches wide. Now the reason I'm making him 1 1/2 inches is because I want this arm on this side to stick out. I want it to come down, to stick out, and have plenty of room to be holding something. Okay? And this is going to be a winter scene. Many of you maybe have seen this scene, but like I said, I have not done a video on how to create this scene. And so what we're going to do now, I'm using a different knife today. My Ron Wells knife is still always my go-to, but when I went to the Charlotte show, Alan Goodman gave me a knife, and it's a beautiful little knife. Look at that thing. It's a beautiful little knife with the handle, all that stuff, in other words. And Alan he makes beautiful knives, and I'm going to carve with that today. It's a great knife. I've already carved with it, you know, and it cuts beautifully, and it's just really nice. But I'm going to use it today. Let me go ahead and start separating the head from our piece. I love this scene because there was when we traveled a long time, and I remember traveling up to my son's every year that I traveled to my son's. You run out of gas or anything like that, it's very unusual, because you could go to the next town and find some. But when I was a young man, you had to really plan good, because there wasn't a gas station in every town. And you know, back then gas stations not only sold gas, but they also worked on cars. Most of the time it was some old guy and he owned it and he worked on the cars, or had someone there that would work on the cars and stuff like that. And they'd change oil and they'd do stuff like that. And it was just a different time. And this is just kind of a little humorous scene about running out of gas is all. And like I said, some of you have already seen this type of scene, but you have not seen how I made it, how I created it. So the figure, I thought about turning his head in this one, but I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to turn his head. I'm just going to have him looking straight on. And I'm going to go down to the feet now. And let's see, I took too big of a bite right there. A little bit too big of a bite. And we want to, in this scene, this will be a winter scene, so there will be snow, and there will be, a long jacket, of course, because it's the winter time. This basswood is actually a plaque that I had bought at Hobby Lobby for something, and then it got broken, so I just glued a couple pieces together to 3/4. They come in 3/4 size, and so I glued them together so that I could get the 1.5 inch width that I wanted. Really like the way this knife is shaped. I really do. I hope everyone is having a very nice time. This is the day after the election, and we going to have a new president, Mr. Trump, and I'm wishing him well. And I lived through the Trump era already. I thought he did a pretty good job, so might live through it again. Now we just need to realize, and I think most people do, that one man cannot do everything. Although this man has been through hell in his life, and two assassination attempts almost tried on him, or one did try on him, the other failed, and he just stayed strong, and he won the election by quite a bit in that sense. So congratulate our new Mr. President, and I know if you don't like him, well, I understand that. I like Mr. Trump, and I think he'd be a good man for this country because I think he's a businessman, not because of his personality necessarily. I am not. I admit I'm not crazy about Donald Trump's personality. I feel he talks too much. He says too many things. He doesn't need to say all those things, and he just has a tendency to talk too much. Now he doesn't offend me or anything like that. I just feel that, he just needs to kind of, and I'm not his, protege, so, but, just sometimes you just don't have to say anything. Just let it go. But they have really treated him terribly bad and trying to do everything in the world to him to stop him. And this was one thing that they didn't want. I did get the one thing that the one great thing more than anything about Mr. Trump winning is the fact that it just floored the news media. And I think I've already told you how I feel about the news media. I am very, very, I just believe these people are evil. I do. I believe they lie, they will do anything and say anything to get their way. And that, to me, that's a very immature way of looking at things. It just is. So, one of the good things is you get to watch the news media have meltdowns over the fact that he has won. And, he just almost ran away with the whole system. I knew there were places like Colorado and New York and Washington was going to vote for Kamala Harris, but she took a pretty good licking. And I'm going to go that's the way I do. I go down to the feet, then I work on the head a little bit more. So she took a fairly unusual licking here, and he did very well. And the people spoke, folks. That's the thing. Whether I like it or don't like it or whatever, the people spoke, and they spoke who they wanted. And so, that's what happened. But it's not, people, 4 years does not change the mess we're in right now. America's in a mess. And we're no longer looked up to as the superpower of the world, so we're not the same nation that we once were, no matter what. Okay, we've got the head. We're getting there, okay? Now what I want to do is come to the side here, and I want to go ahead and cut up like this. We're going to make a hand here, an arm here, and the hand is going to be holding something. So but I used to remember Dad would, he usually try to gas up before we left, so that we wouldn't be caught in a situation where we couldn't find a gas station. Now it's just, I'll go through these small towns a lot of time, and they have one huge gas station. They built one of these nice ones, and all that other stuff. And now gas stations are not like the old gas stations. They are not like that, folks. The old gas station was, most of the time, they were filthy because they had been working on cars. You pull in there, but see, you didn't pump your gas back then. They did it for you. They had someone who, usually a kid or young boy or something like that, that did the work, the gas station work, in other words. And you pull in there, and they come out, and you'd either say fill her up, or usually they'd ask you, you want me to fill it up? And most people said, yeah, go ahead and fill it up. And so they would pump the gas for you. They would check the hood, which they check the water, they check the oil. Well, I don't know if they check the water. Most of the time, you didn't have an oil reservoir back then. Excuse me, a radiator reservoir like back there where you put water in it and all that stuff. You did that. You had to open up the radiator cap, and when the car was hot, you sure in the world would not do that because it was under pressure. So that was what we would do. So, you traveled. Traveling was so different back then. It was so different. And that's what I mean. A lot of people, I don't know if you look back in the old times, but people, most of the time, that families that traveled, when lunch would come around, they would stop off at a roadside park. And they would eat their lunch there. And that was the way people did when they traveled. You didn't have like I said, you didn't have all these stores, you didn't have all these restaurants, you didn't have all that stuff on the way. You didn't have a sign saying, oh, eateries over here and stuff like that while you're driving there. You didn't have a GPS to tell you where. You just didn't have all that stuff. So things were just different. All right, this one is going to go in the coat because it's cold. And yeah, you didn't have all that stuff back then. So this was the way that most people traveled. And usually when we packed to go somewhere, travel, my mother, we would have these. They're igloo now, but we'd have these ice chests that we would carry in the car, where my mother would put lunch meat and some drinks or things like that for us. And we would stop off at a roadside park or on the side of the road or somewhere off where we wouldn't get run over, and we would eat our lunch, because you just didn't have, all the amenities that people have today on the side of the road. So that was the way we traveled. And we'd eat our lunch, and then we would head back. We'd go on the way. Dad would eat his lunch, and we would go on our way. Because back then, people usually ate 3 times a day. Now, I know some people don't eat, I don't eat 3 times a day. I don't have lunch, dinner, all that other stuff. I usually just eat when I get hungry. But, Mom would fix sandwiches, and she'd bring little bags of Fritos and stuff like that. And we would stop in a roadside park, and we would eat. And then when we got through eating, we'd kind of rest a little bit. We get back in the car, we travel. And that's the way we did it. Because sometimes you go miles and miles and miles, and you wouldn't see a restaurant or a grocery store or anything like that. So Mom always made sure that we had food but the kind of food it was different. You know, it wasn't you stopped at a restaurant and had something to eat. I mean, there were restaurants back then. If you stopped at anything, it was usually what was called a cafe, C-A-F-E, and it was like a cafe, and it was sometimes it would be an old beer joint, and the front of it would be a beer joint, and the back of it would be a place where you could eat and stuff like that. And that was what that was the way we did it. So, and I don't ever remember as a kid stopping in any cafes. You know, we just didn't. We would bring the lunch meat, and we would eat on the side of the road and keep moving. So, just a different time. And Mom would, we didn't have seat belts as kids. We'd be in the back of an old station wagon or something like that, and we'd be sitting back there, and there was enough room in most of those cars that you could lay down almost and sleep or do whatever. So all right, we got now the hands in the pocket here. Okay. Now he's beginning to take shape as we go. But that was how we traveled. That was the way that we traveled. And that was those things as children. And that same thing with gas stations. It was a lot of times you'd see a gas station with last gas or something like that, and you better fill up. You're getting low. And like I said, gas stations back then were totally different from today. They worked on your car. If you had a flat or something, they'd fix your flat. They would, they're the ones that, if you brought your car in, they would clean your car and vacuum it and detail it. And one wasn't really called detailing, it was just cleaning your car. And so just totally different. Totally, a different era and a different theme. Okay, now I'm going to draw a line for the hand in here. Let's go ahead and cut this in the back here. Okay. Now you go from the inside, remember? Cut that. Go from the inside. So that was the way we traveled. And we didn't know anything else. I mean, we didn't, like I said, we didn't know anything else. So naturally we just accepted that as the way that you traveled and the way that you did things and all that. So, and we were not a rich family, so we had to basically travel like most people would. I never flew on a plane, folks, until I was probably around 20. I never flew on a plane. And I flew on one going to Oklahoma, Duncan, Oklahoma, to my best friend's wedding in Duncan, Oklahoma. And I'm just kind of bringing the head down because I'm continuing to just trying to get some metrics of it as we go along. So it was a good time, you know. Family was our, see, when I was a kid, the main theme of life was family. It was. That's where many things have changed so much lately. It was family. Dad worked, Mom stayed at home. We took trips, we took vacations when we could. When we went, we did not stay in the fanciest motels or anything like that because we could not afford all that. It's just people couldn't afford it. So that was the way that we did. And nowadays people just, you know, anytime I go somewhere, I always try to read the reviews on a motel if I'm going to stay at or something like that. And I'll read the comments and the reviews on a motel and what its condition is and all that other stuff. And I will read, there's people that will give a motel a bad rap or a bad thing. Didn't have enough soap, or didn't have enough towels because we went down and swam in the pool or something like that. You know, I mean, it's like, folks, how do I say this? I mean, it's very simple to say, and really in definite terms, we didn't have people waiting on us. If you lived as I lived, we did not have people wait on us. Mom, when we would go to a motel room, she would bring her own cleaning stuff, and she would clean the bathroom, and she would clean the beds, and she would do that kind of stuff to make sure that everything was copacetic, as we say, in the room. So we didn't have people, there was no such thing as a continental breakfast. Oh, Lord have mercy. People go, oh, well, I went to the continental breakfast and it wasn't as good as I thought it was going to be, and la. Okay, all right. Well, you'd have lived in my time, there was no continental breakfast. You didn't get nothing. You just got a room. And, you know, if you had too many people, maybe a pull-away bed for your room or whatever it is. But you didn't go in there and get special amenities and, you know, as a person. Now they try to give things away so you stay at there in a motel and stuff. But they just didn't give you all this stuff. And people were more self-sufficient back then. We would bring our own stuff. Mom would clean up, you know, we'd clean, and we did not leave the motel room in disarray, or in, you know, my father was the kind of guy that he did not believe, and, you know, if you stay in someone's motel and whatever it is, you left it as clean as possible before you would leave. That was, your character was judged. You say, well, I'll never see that person again. Doesn't matter. To my father and mother and all of them, you just didn't do things like that because people judged you on your character. All right, now we got this looking good now. It really is. So you did not Okay. We're getting there. Your character was judged. So my mother would not have left that room in disarray and just walked away out of it. That was just not her style. She would not allow it, us kids, to tear up stuff, because she felt that was not ours, it did not belong to us, and you were not to tear things up. It was just that simple. And to be honest with you, nowadays they have like a $300, $400 deposit that you have to pay at motels, and and then they will, once you check out, they check the room, make sure that you haven't stolen anything or tear anything up, and then they return your deposit or put it back on the credit card, because all motels now you pay a credit card. People paid cash back then, so it was just totally different. But back then, people just, unless they were drunk or staying in a particular, people didn't tear up motels like people do today. They just didn't do it. People had a lot more respect for things than did most people today. And but that was the way my mother and father raised us. I don't know how other mothers and fathers did, but that was the way we did. Okay, look at this. We're getting to this point here. Let me come up here with this. Where all right, there we go, and we're looking good. Okay, now we're starting to kind of shape it a little bit. Shape the back of it. Okay, you see that? Now, what I want to do is, before we take any more off the front, we're going to come around here. As you can see, I'm coming around here, and we're going to make a scarf, okay? All right, and then from here we're going to go back behind here, and we're going to come around here, and we're going to make another scarf, just so like that. See that? And we're going to make a scarf that runs there. So, let me so we come up here and we cut at the shoulders here, and we cut down, okay? And we're going to do that. You can draw that if you want to. And you just make a series of cuts down to that area right there. And then you want to cut back like this. Okay? You just want to take your time. Now let's come up here and go ahead and make that V right here. And let's dig out a little bit in there. But with the edge of the knife, which is beautiful, beautiful edges on this Allen Goodman knife. Just beautiful little points on that knife. And then we want to come down here. We want to make a cut here. And we want to make a cut here. And we want to remove that wood right there. Now we'll figure out how much to take off in a little while, but we want to go ahead and make our cuts right there. Okay? And we're going to come all the way down here a little bit further and cut up right here. And then you kind of make a cut in there. And the same thing here. You want to come down and you want to come over. And from that point, you take that off and the scarf, that off. And you'll see when I get through with it. And then you go a little bit deeper. Okay? And let's just go ahead and make that cut right there. And make that cut right there. So what you have here is just sort of a scarf, okay? Now the scarf overlaps it right here, so we're going to make a little cut in there, okay? And then we're going to come from the inside here and make that there. And we're going to make a cut right here. And we're going to come up underneath it. That way the scarf looks like it's overlapping. And okay, let me cut this in here. It looks like the scarf. I'm going to come back here because this is going to be brought down anyway. That's why I didn't really get too you know, rambunctious about it. And we take and we make that scarf a little bit more like this. And we're going to make a little bit deeper. And of course we bring this down with our, to kind of match our things. Okay, you see that? That's just sort of a little scarf that's wrapped around each thing. I'll take a little bit more off in here. Okay. You want to make sure that that shoe is underneath that coat just a little bit. Doesn't have to be perfect, but that it's underneath it. Alright, let's go ahead and work on our head now. Let's go ahead and get our head situated. I'm sorry, we're gonna have to. Okay, slowly but surely now, we're beginning to work out the all right. So as you see, we have everything worked out pretty good. I just want to cut that right there. There we go. Give a little bit more texture, a little bit more fun. All right. There we go. Okay. Now we're getting the head down now to where we pretty much want it. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to put a kind of a skull cap on him. Well, it's not really a skull cap, but it's a little winter hat on him. So what I want to do is I just want to draw a line around the top of his head like this. No. Yeah, that's what I want to do. Now let me look at it. Coming down, I don't know if it's lower. Yeah, and what we want to do, we want to go around the little thing and we want to cut out our little oh gosh, what do you call these things? They fit on, made out of wool or something like that. They're like little, they got so many names for stuff nowadays, gosh. They even got man purses. I have to draw the line at that, folks. I'm not going to do that. I'll carry a wallet. I'm not going to carry a man purse. So we continue to kind of go around there and get this. Doesn't have to be perfect on top of his head, because none of the stuff that we do is perfect on top of our heads, unless we're, you know, one of these guys that just really. But if you, when you see the situation, you know, it's not going to be a concern and a worry. So next, what I want to do is I want to go ahead and up here, I want to draw another line up at the top up here. Okay. And I want to do the same thing. Okay. So I'm going to cut. Now you want to be very, very careful, because this is a area that you want to be real careful with, okay? Here goes a car down the street. I'm outside. I'm in my garage. It's been cool, but it's turning back hot again. I talked to my son in Kentucky. He said it's, you know, going up there. But That's why people don't really understand. That's why travel was such a big issue, because you had to carry everything with you. You had to carry your food with you. You had to carry all that. If you were going to eat food, you had to carry it with you. You didn't. There wasn't a store. There wasn't a restaurant everywhere you went. So that was the way people had to eat and stuff, because you carried your food with you. And you did the same thing when you okay, I'm just kind of get this, continue to get this down. Yeah, you carried everything with you. You did not leave. Now the little skull cap, or what I call it, just sits on top of the head. It's not covering a whole lot. I mean, we could have made it where it came down and covered the whole face and stuff like that, but that's not what we wanted. I'm sorry. And particularly on this thing. So that was why you had. That's why you had cars like station wagons with a bunch of stuff you could carry things with. Our lives were totally and completely different. Now people go and they go on a vacation, and man, there's a McDonald's, or there's a Wendy's, or there's a Dairy Queen at every town, and all right, there we go. We got that situated in a way. And what we want to do is we want to go ahead and, from the coat itself, we want to bring that cut down here like this, and then from this side remove this right here like this. Okay, and we can do the same thing up here. I'll go ahead and do it. You don't have to do it up in that area, because it's really not all that noticeable. And then you do things like you'll put well, you don't really put a button right down there. That's very often that they have. So your scarves and stuff is covering the button, or the okay, it's like right here. Those are the little. You go back here and you look at your shoulders, and if they need, one of them needs to come down more, you just bring it down. Doesn't need to come down, that's fine. That's good. Of course, on each side I come down till I then meet at an angle, till I then have meet with the nose, which is right here. Okay, and we make our cut. We make our cut on both sides. Now I know the way I do it is not traditionally the way most people do it. I just do it this way. I enjoy doing it. I start shaping my nose. I come up here. And I shape my nose. I start cutting things away, so that I can. Alright, see that? Now the nose will go in deeper, but what I want to do next is I want to come on the sides here, and I want to draw my little side lines down where my ears will go. Make that cut in there. This is where my ears are. You sort of kind of come up around and go down here like this. And you make that cut right there, which gives you the room for your ears, just like that. Now, if you want to, you can actually leave this and paint these as things covering the guy's ears, but I'm not going to do that on this particular one. I'm going to go ahead and make the ears, and we're going to do that, okay? But you could just make that like the hat has a lot of these hats have the flaps going down that protect the ears and stuff, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go ahead and draw my ears in here and cut them out. Yeah, and I remember those travels so vividly, and I'm sure many of you that are watching this remember them also. And those were, like I said, we have changed so much as a nation. When I was a young man, the father, most of the time, his biggest concern was providing for his family. My father had been through World War II and spent 4 years in a Japanese prisoner of war camp. And why had he done that? He did it for his family. He did it. Now, my father was not married at that time. He was not. He was a very young man. So, but he still did it for his mother and dad, who stayed married all their lives, never divorced, did anything like that. He fought for them. And so family was so important. And you just, you had friends and stuff, but everything was done most of the time with the family. It's clouding up out there. As you can see, my lighting has changed somewhat. I noticed that my lighting has changed a little bit. It was all the family. That's what a man did. He was to protect his family. But things have changed drastically. People are not getting married as much anymore, having children as much anymore. It's just not. It's not the same. So, cutting that off right there, and cutting this back in here. So things were just different. So the family spent a lot of time together. And, I got to know my brothers and sisters very well, and mom and dad and everybody else. So it was not a independent type thing. You spent time with the family, you did things with the family, or you didn't do them at all. That vacation time. And we didn't take that many vacations. To be honest with you, as a boy, I don't really remember going out of Texas. Now, we did go to Louisiana, which was not that far from where I live. The Louisiana border is only about 15 minutes from here. So I did go to Louisiana with to see my mother's family. But that's as far as I went. I did not go to, I'm just going to go ahead and put these little eyes in here. And so we didn't go that far. Now, they said as a child, I traveled to Chicago, which I was such a baby. I didn't even know I traveled. So I'm talking about times that I knew that 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 I, you know, but we just didn't do it. And you know, we traveled. We just didn't have the money. I'm gonna go ahead and make my face now on each side. As usual, I used the so we would go, if we went to a ball game, we would go to the Houston Astros ball game in Houston and places like that, because Houston was only about an hour and a half from where we were. Okay. Now, I'm getting close to finishing this little thing. We want to come down here and we want to go ahead and cut the you know, the pants, separate the pants from the shoes. Do that. So a lot of people today, and I mean, I've traveled more as when I was married and stuff like that than I've ever traveled, and you know, been to different places. But I never traveled to those places when I was young because we just didn't have the funds. My father worked in a refinery, but back then they didn't make the money in a refinery that they make today. So Dad didn't, you know, didn't do all that kind of stuff. And we were 4 of us, so, and like I said, we didn't have brand new cars all the time, so you were almost afraid to travel too much and break down and all that other stuff. But that's the way people were. Okay. Now, let me come up underneath here and get a little bit more out from each side. Now, this guy, he is not going to be very happy because it's going to be snowing and he is going to be having to, so we will not have a smile on his face. He's going to have to, he'll be, you know, just kind of, so it won't be a happy thing because he's realizing he's going to have to walk a long way to get gas. So let's come up a little bit more underneath here. Now let's go ahead and get our body. I've already cut most of, well, not right in here. I've cut most of this from my, but I'm fixing to get my V-tool here in a minute. And I'm fixing to do some things here. I know sometimes it's hard to see. Let me go ahead and grab my V-tool so we can do the hair. And like I said, here we go. My V-tool. Let's come back here from the ears. Let's go ahead and get our hair done. These are very small figure. A 3-inch figure is not very tall, folks. You know how, you know, compact characters, Jack Price were, they were 2 and 2.5 inches. But a 3-inch figure is a very, very small figure. But I like to do 3-inch figures because if you do them too small, then you can't get a whole lot of detail in them like you want. You want to add that detail in them. Now we can go back here and we can kind of cut that down where the come across here like this. Now, on our scarf here that we have, at the very end of the scarf, actually we have these they're not really what you call. Let's see. Let me get this off. This came off right in here, so get that lined out right there. They're not really called tassels, but they're. Let me get that. I don't know why it's hanging on like that. And I'm gonna draw one right here. And you can actually do this with your V tool. You just come across here like this, and you make that right there, and then you take and you just do little, there it goes, little tassel type stuff right in here. But you want to be careful, because this is an area that is very, very delicate in there, and you can break that area. So you don't want to get too crazy with your V tool, and you don't want to, because you'll break off the ends. Okay, there we go. That's all. Alright. Now, let's move this a little bit. Let's bring this down just a bit. You might put a cigar in his mouth. You might do that. We'll see. But come back here and get all this cleaned up in here, and we can go ahead and come back here and do the little cuts in the pants, get a little character. Yeah, it's an interesting time, but those days are gone. And actually, I love it. As being an old guy like myself, I love it. The gas is everywhere you turn, and there's the stations you can stop and go to the bathroom and all this other stuff. I'm not going to tell you what. I'm not going to tell you how we went to the bathroom back then. Most of the time, you come to those old rest stops, those old bathrooms have been torn up and messed up, and you didn't really even want to go in those things. They were so nasty, a lot of them. People tore them up. They just, I don't know why people had a tendency to tear things up, but people do, and they do today, I know. So we would stop at the on the side of the road and run to a bush, and that was, or even now, y'all remember this. I know those that have lived. You'd stop and you would open the door, and you just stand by the side, and it was there was nothing unusual about that, folks. People would be going, cars would be passing by, but remember, we didn't have the super highways either. I mean, not where I was. Okay, I'm sure they had super highways, but not where I was. So where we traveled, I mean, there wasn't bathrooms, and there wasn't so sometimes you just open the door and stand by the door, kind of so nobody would see you, and go to the bathroom. And it was nothing to it. I mean, people would drive by and wouldn't say anything, wouldn't call the cops, wouldn't do this, do that. Oh, he's doing this, and I don't like that, and all that. People didn't get offended back then, folks. They just didn't. They didn't, because they knew that they were probably going to have to end up doing it. Anyway, here we are. And of course, I'll clean him up. But let me go wet him. This is a good knife. Tell you what, Alan can make a sharp knife. Uh-oh. He can. Easily, you strop it easily. You don't have no problem with it. And of Okay, let me get my... Hold on. All right, folks. Hot tea. Oh. It's amazing how you can still remember all that stuff when you was a kid and all that. I don't mean to upset you. All right, there he is. There he is. And we'll get him. I'll take my knife and I'll go over him and we'll get him finished. But the next phase of this little thing is there's a little trick to it. I'm not going to put the, until I drill a hole, I'm going to be drilling a hole, and until I do, in fact I can cut that hand off just a little bit, and until I do, I'm going to drill the hole first before I put my fingers in, okay, so that I don't go down too far. I don't go down too far with my V-tool, and then when I go to drill my hole, I mess it up. So I've learned that a long time ago. I used to do that. I'd go ahead and do my V-tool work on my hand, and then I'd turn right around, and when I drill my hole, I'd gone too deep, and then it would open it up. So I don't do that anymore. So anyway, there's our little guy, and we're gonna continue with our project. Thank you now.